Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres. Finally got the footage and everything together that I wanted, I guess I could say, for the August von Parseval, or as I will refer to it from this point, the AVP, really just to make it a little bit easier to say. And it took me a while to get this far, and I do apologize. My interest to as far as some of you already know, has been in playing Elite Dangerous lately, and I've kind of been sticking with it just because again, it's just had my interest a little bit more lately, and World of Warships is just kind of starting to burn me out a little bit with everything that's been going on. So just getting out of World of Warships for a little bit, still trying to keep up to date on it though, but it was also everything else that had been going on with the hurricane and everything else just kind of really put a damper on my overall mood for the game, among other things. So just, yeah, really rough last few weeks actually. So, anyway, I suppose I should start off by letting everybody know that, yes, I have had power. I've actually had power back for a couple of weeks now. But the reason I haven't been posting since the power came back is just, or at least not really since the power came back, again, is just because of not really wanting to get into World of Warships, playing Elite Dangerous again, just I've been trying out a couple of things on there and basically just trying to earn credits as quickly as I possibly can. And other than that, just enjoying something that was a bit different pace from World of Warships. That being said, I did get into World of Warships today. I got the footage together that you are watching right now for the August von Parseval so that I can give you my opinion on her. And on that note, I will say that the August von Parseval is a very capable ship. However, the situation really has to work in her favor. And I suppose the same could be said for any of the CVs that are in game right at the moment. But I think the Parseval is a little bit more on that than, say, a Lexington or a Shokaku. The Lexington and the Shokaku have weapons that they can fall back on that do respectable amounts of damage, but the German CVs, they've got armor piercing basically through and through. The only thing that's really good against anything with light armor is torpedoes, but honestly, trying to lead a destroyer with even good fast 55-knot torpedoes is a pain in the butt, and that's something you'll actually see in my third match. Because there's one point where I'm actually taking on trying to torpedo drop a Shimakaze, and just I think I have my lead, but I end up actually being way off. So yeah, just I guess something to kind of have in the back of your mind there. As far as anything else, of course, torpedoes are very effective against battleships, but these are low damage German Navy or German aircraft carrier torpedoes. So while they'll sting, they're certainly not really resulting in any lethal hits, so to speak. What you're really relying on for any major damage in these ships is the AP bombs. And I will say that at this point so far, I've had some difficulty trying to get good Citadel hits on equal or lower, or hell, even higher tier battleships with the Parseval. I think because we've hit that point where armor really starts actually meaning quite a bit, it's just harder to actually get those good, solid, penetrating hits that you're looking for to drop your good high damage AP bombs into enemy ships' citadels. As far as other things go, the Parseval is outfitted with some decent secondaries. They are very capable under close quarters or semi-medium range circumstances. As long as you get a clear shot at your target, they'll do some pretty decent damage. I mean, they are German secondaries. They've got all of the German penetration characteristics, and they are reasonably accurate, so they can do some damage. And in some ways, depending on how you look at it, I suppose also depending on how you outfit your ship and how you choose to engage, it is entirely possible to at least speculate that once in a blue moon, the secondaries might actually outperform her aircraft. I'm not saying that they are going to do excessive amounts of damage, that they are certainly not to be considered a replacement for her aircraft, not even by a long shot. But it is still at least capable of being mentioned that they are at least somewhat viable for self-defense, especially if a destroyer gets too close. And if you're one of those who decides that, okay, I've got a nice armored aircraft carrier, it'll be nice to push in a little bit, that you can actually utilize this aircraft carrier to get a little bit of additional chip damage with the AP, with her secondary battery. So just kind of have that in the back of your mind as well, I suppose. As far as the overall performance of the aircraft, these aircraft really do not like AA, and that's precisely because of one of the identities of the German aircraft carriers, and that is that the aircraft are low health. They really do not take a whole lot to shoot down, and that can actually cause you problems as an aircraft carrier, because that is your primary damage source, that is your primary offensive weapon. And when they're getting shot down too easily, it does in fact hurt your overall damage output quite a bit. So again, that is why I suppose I will mention that the secondaries make a nice supplementary weaponry for this ship. But, I mean, it is still a tier 8. If you get into a top tier match, you really don't want to be in a position where you're actually showing your ship to the enemy. So, yeah, just kind of take that small piece of advice with a grain of salt. It is not the best situation to end up in. Now, one thing that I will say is because you are using armor-piercing rockets, because you are using AP bombs, her AP bombs, again, as long as you get them into the right place on battleships, can be rather devastating. Getting successive hits, on the other hand, can be problematic. Let's see, other things to mention. The AP rockets are really best used against the upper belt or superstructure of battleships. They're also better used against cruisers, but when you're broadside. The other nice thing, however, is that if you are engaging an enemy, say, German aircraft carrier, that is where some of these AP rockets can actually do a substantial amount of damage, because the German aircraft carriers are essentially armored carriers. So they can actually take some reasonable damage from AP rockets where other aircraft carriers normally would not. So I guess that's one little thing to kind of have in the back of your mind. Now, granted, with any aircraft carrier, trying to take on another CV is very difficult. You're basically guaranteed to lose an entire squadron if you send it off after an enemy aircraft carrier. So you're really only going to get off a limited number of strikes before you have to wait for your aircraft to replenish. But again, if you spec her a little bit for her secondary battery range, I suppose, you can push into to kind of hunt down enemy aircraft carriers without really risking your ship too much. But I will say take that statement again with a grain of salt. Because one, you've got to get that close, which usually means either pushing through the enemy lines or kind of snaking your way around them. So there is that to be said. Other things that these ships definitely benefit highly from commander skills, especially commander skills that improve the speed of aircraft. And I will say that because the identity of these aircraft is to be fast, so that they spend less time in the AA bubbles, and to that end, you can actually get some pretty high speeds out of these aircraft if this aircraft carrier is spec'd for aircraft bonuses, specifically regarding the engine, the overall cruise speed, etc., and so forth. Keeping the engine boost cooldown is another thing, so that you actually can get in and out of AA bubbles as effectively as possible without taking too much damage or losing too many aircraft. So there is kind of that to be said and kept in mind as well. Another thing that I should probably recommend for a commander build on the German aircraft carriers is, in fact, I think it's either Basics of Survivability or Survivability Expert. And that is a big deal for these aircraft carriers because it gives a added bonus to the hit points of your aircraft. I think it's like 50 hit points for every tier. So when you're looking at a tier 8 aircraft carrier, 50 hit points, that's an additional 400 hit points per aircraft that you can gain. So definitely worthwhile, especially when you consider that these are, again, low survivability aircraft. So getting every last hit point into these planes is going to be a big deal as far as maintaining damage output and aircraft recovery in general. It's also the ability to stay in enemy airspace longer, keep enemies spotted longer if you're trying to spot a pesky destroyer, and any number of other things that could be mentioned. And overall, just basically just do anything that you can to get every ounce of utility out of these aircraft as possible, because these aircraft, more so than the hull, need help, and I do mean they need help. They really suffer, again, very heavily due to Matchmaker. They suffer very heavily due to the tier that they get matched at. And if you get any ship that has any respectable amount of AA capability, you suffer greatly. These aircraft will get chewed up very quickly against respectable AA. These are not tanky midway aircraft. These aren't the super fast Japanese semi-tanky aircraft. These are low survivability, relatively quick German aircraft that, again, they really just will not take as much of a beating as you would like them to. So, yeah, just be very, very careful with them. And you definitely want to get every ounce of survivability and speed out of them as you possibly can. Now, I have mentioned that this aircraft carrier does have reasonable secondaries for supplementation. And that is part of what you're actually going to see in the match going on in the background right now, because I did push in, probably against any and all recommendation, but honestly, you know what? As far as this actual match is concerned, I think this was probably the best decision I could have made. And I'm definitely not going to say that I regretted it too much, except for the fact that I really don't end up doing an incredible amount of damage. The nice thing is the ship does actually tank some decent damage because she is, in fact, an armored carrier. Granted, under the wrong circumstances or against the wrong angles, her AA, her armor is still going to suffer. She does not have incredibly thick armor, but it is at least somewhat tanky relative to her equal tier contemporaries. So just, I guess, enjoy that just a little bit. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. It gives her at least a little bit of additional added utility. To that point, however, as far as any sort of secondary speccing for her, I would only opt for advanced firing training and basic firing training, just to be able to get the reload and the range on your secondary batteries. But anything beyond that, I cannot for the life of me recommend, because one, you are not in direct control of your hull, so unless you happen to bounce back and actually select a manual target, it's really not that great of an option. I mean, I suppose if that's your playstyle as a German carrier player, if you've gotten used to that with the Graf Zeppelin, I mean, all power to you, no, don't get me wrong. But she does not have the Graf Zeppelin secondaries. She doesn't have those lower or mid-belt 150 millimeter guns that the Graf Zeppelin has. She only has the deck, I think they're 105s. So they're not really doing any incredible amount of damage. So just don't try to make her into the Graf Zeppelin, because she is not. She is not going to perform anywhere near the same way as the Graf Zeppelin when it comes to the secondaries. At most, again, just AFT, BFT to get them performing a little bit better. Oh, wow. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. That was a good smack on that Mosk. The 12,500 damage with one rocket strike. Unfortunately, it was also backed up by an Alsace, so that entire squadron of rocket aircraft is kaput. They're gone. But okay, anyway, moving on. Trying to get the ship, and yeah, while I have mentioned it again, supplementary secondary batteries, don't try to turn that into her identity. She is not a secondary battery ship by any stretch of the imagination. They are good for self-defense, really, alone against, say, destroyers that get just a tad too close. Beyond that, there's not really much more I can offer in that regard. She just doesn't have the secondary batteries to reliably do substantial amounts of damage to enemy ships at close range. You definitely want to put more skill points into your ship commander or into your aircraft skills than anything to do with the overall performance of the hull for the Alexander von Parseval. Or, sorry, August von Parseval. I keep wanting to call it the Alexander. As far as anything else goes with this ship, I'm really not sure what all else I actually could offer to say. She really does not benefit too highly from any major skills outside of the aircraft bonuses or secondary batteries. Flags, camos, really nothing special there to mention, aside from maybe opting for her premium camouflage. Avoid any, I would honestly say avoid any tier 10 ship like the Plague, because they will tear her planes apart, especially if you do not have survivability expert or basic survivability. They're just going to be torn apart like paper. There's really no other way to say that. It might be worth saying that a level 4 skill that you could invest in would be sight stabilization for the aircraft reticle. And that's only if you're really trying to turn around quickly and get attacks off as quickly as possible, but beyond that, there's really not much use you would get out of it. I mean, I suppose there is something to be said for it because, I mean, at least with faster aircraft, you are going to want that reticle to tighten down quickly, and if you have to maneuver at all, it is a nice added bonus to be able to get some additional DPS out there. But overall, again, what you're really wanting to focus on is, in fact, the speed and tankiness of your aircraft. Definitely stay away from any sort of major hull modifiers. Again, because one, you're an aircraft carrier, they're not going to do a whole lot for you. And yeah, not really much else to say there. As far as a overall assessment of the ship, I will definitely say that the August von Parseval as a Tier 8 aircraft carrier is an okay ship. She is not a stellar ship. She is definitely, I guess, capable under the right circumstances as a Tier 8. But don't expect her to perform any miracles, because I guarantee you she will not. I mean, the only thing that I could see as really being the ideal situation for this ship to basically be able to fight with absolute wanton abandon would be if she was the only Tier 8 on the map, which is generally unlikely, against a string of Tier 6 battleships or heavy cruisers. And even then, again, I think that's the only situation under which she would benefit really at all. Because as soon as she starts getting into equal or high tiers, she really just starts suffering. Again, primarily more due to the survivability of her aircraft than anything else. So, I mean, yeah, again, as I said, she is an okay Tier 8, but she's definitely, in fact, I would definitely say she is by far not the best Tier 8 Techline aircraft carrier. She is usable, though, especially if you're trying to grind through the German line, though there's a part of me that says I'm basically just going to be sticking with other lines and basically free EXPing to the Manfred von Richthofen. So, anyway, that's beside the point. Not really much else to say there. I mean, I've already said I have nothing spectacular to say about the ship, aside from the fact that under the right circumstances, and I mean under exactly the right circumstances of being the only top-tier ship in a match, she really is just okay. She doesn't do stellar, she doesn't do too poorly, she just does okay. And I suppose to some degree that's really all you need. I'm not sure what else to say. So I don't think I'm even going to bother trying to say much else. On that note, I'll go ahead, let you all go. Stay safe out there, stay out of trouble. And I'll catch you all again next time. Happy hunting, folks. Stay safe. Have a good one.